Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Chesney, which is brought to you by YMC Studio. It's for 5 to 10 players, ages 12 and up, and games generally run about 70 to 110 minutes. In the magical world of Venos, the forest kingdom of Catrolia is going through chaotic times. The king of Catrolia has been assassinated during a trip to the Moonkeep, a military fortress on the eastern border of the kingdom. When the news reaches the capital, the entire city is thrown into shock because the king, who was in his prime, had yet to name an heir to the throne. The succession problem prompts the 4 major factions to turn on each other and battle for the throne. As a native of Catrolia, you do not belong to any of the 4 major factions. However, you want to end the kingdom's crisis quickly, or even take this opportunity to make a name for yourself. You hope to help the faction that best fits your ideals and wins the control of the kingdom as soon as possible. Chesney is a game about shifting factions, strategy, and social deduction. You take on the role of a native of Catrolia. At the beginning of the game, your faction and character cards are not disclosed. You and your fellow players are free to talk at any time during the game and may make any number of claims, finding your allies and achieving the shared goal, which is to have only one faction in control. After 3 rounds, the player with the highest score will achieve victory. Will you be that legend that is born out of chaos? Join me as we take a closer look. So, this is a game of shifting factions. You will be dealt cards, and they will all be played face down, unlike what you see here with them all face up. However, through the course of the game, you'll be revealing cards, shifting cards, trying to create that dominant faction so you can score points, and hopefully you are aligned properly by the end of the round. And there are 3 rounds that you go through trying to accumulate those points. Some of the setup in this one will be based on player count, as well as if you choose to play the basic game versus the advanced. The advanced cards all have an icon in the bottom right corner, so you know which ones to pull out and so forth. But you will set up your faction deck based on player count. And there are 4 different clans in the game. You've got Bearhead, you've got Foxtail, you've got the Deer Antler, and the Dragon Wing. Now you also have a set of tokens that are obviously related to those different clans as well. We'll get to those in a minute. Now, these 2 different clan cards that are going to be dealt can be placed face down on your player board. You can look at them anytime you want, and you'll see that there's numbers at the top. Whichever clan has the highest number value of your 2 is the one you're going to be aligned with, and the one that you hope is the dominant clan by the end of the round. Now, if you have 2 clans that have the same number, well then you have a dual clan membership, so to say, and you could also have 2 of the same clan. So you have some options there, and you'll try to shift these clans around, again, using action cards, which we'll get to. And you'll be dealt a character card, which will go in the middle of your board. Again, played face down, but you're always aware of what your cards are. So you'll take a look at this card. At the middle, towards the bottom, I should say, you have your skill, and at the very bottom is your honor mission. That is only used for the advanced game. And also, the honor mission does net you 2 points when you fulfill it in each of the rounds. It's like a private objective, so to say. Now, the skills, though, for your character, there are 3 different types. You've got active skills, so when you flip the card over, it takes effect right away. You'll only use it once. And then you have a passive skill that's ongoing until your card is flipped. And then you have a special skill that only comes up at certain moments through the course of the game. So you want to play your characters wisely in manipulating what is happening out across the different clans and different players. And then you have the action deck, which is how you'll be manipulating all the different clans and your fellow players. So you have the action deck on the main board that you'll be drawing from, and you're going to get 3 action cards to start. Now, at the bottom of the action deck is an event card. So once you run out of these, then an event will trigger and so forth. So you'll be playing these cards on your turn, trying to manipulate what everyone is doing and hopefully trying to gain insight into who the dominant clan is. So on your turn, there are 4 phases basically. First, you have appear, which you have a choice. You don't have to do this. You can reveal your character and take advantage of the skills that it provides. And then you get to play action cards. And this is really the heart of the game. You're playing action cards to the middle of the board and manipulating what has happened, trying to deduce. It isn't a social deduction game after all. So you'll be playing those cards to the middle of the board, and you can play 1 or 2. Or you can choose to discard action cards, and then at the end of the round you can draw back up. Regardless if you're discarding or playing the action cards, you get to draw back up to the amount of cards that you played this particular turn. So action cards could potentially affect everyone at the table. There's a couple different icons. You've got a rabbit icon, which is white, which affects other players. White and black will affect everyone. So you got to keep that in mind as you play these action cards to the table. So there are different flavors though of actions. You've got general actions and you've got attack actions. Attack actions are going to generally use a 12-sided dice you're going to roll. There might be a roll off to see what value is what, based on each of the players that are getting attacked and so forth. But those different types of cards can obviously do mass damage, or you can go after an individual for attack cards. And again, it's all about reducing their health and causing them to be wounded. Now, there are different types of general action cards. First, let's take a look at intelligence. It's the eyeball in the middle of the card, and this card will allow you to look at different factions around the table, as well as potentially flip them face up or even flip them face down. So lots of different ways this intelligence card can go. And some of the other types of general actions you're going to be performing. You'll see here again, icons change in the middle of the card so you know what you're playing. And there's a handy reference guide to show you and help you through a lot of the icons in this game. But here we have hand control. Potentially you're stealing cards from another player. Or you might do faction swap, swapping factions from your player board or another player. And you have healing. Obviously the heart icon will allow you to heal yourself back up, which may be crucial to keep you in the game and trying to figure out who is the dominant faction. And the last two types of actions are preserve and flash. Flash is kind of a reactionary card. It's based on what is happening in the game. So for like elixir, if you become wounded, you can heal. And for the preserve, it's kind of a buff and debuff, but this particular card here, Fabulous Beast, is going to allow you to basically avoid getting damaged until the start of your next turn. So you'll put it into play next to your player board. So again, all these action cards will be played to the middle of the board, and once your turn is finished, then you'll be resting and drawing back up. But you do have one other option. You can do a declare and do a faction judgment. Now there's another way this can happen too, is if your player has been wounded, you lose all your health, well then that will also trigger a faction judgment. Everything pauses and you do this. So this is where things become interesting. Every player will find their dominant faction and place the token secretly in their hand. And they're going to reveal it with their eyes shut, and only the player that called for it or the wounded player will get to see what that judgment is. And if there is a dominant faction in play, well then the game, round comes to an end and you'll score points. And that's really the basics of what you're doing through the course of all 3 rounds. You hope to be the player that reaches the highest score by the end of 3 rounds. And again, there's the advanced way to play, and there's even a speed round way to play where you're just trying to get 12 points. Some really interesting variations, and really it comes down to how you use your action cards and your character cards to manipulate and deduce what faction is in play. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now with that said, I feel like this game really shines at the higher player counts. It is a longer game, so as far as social deduction games, it's not a quick play for sure, but it does have an interesting slow burn as you try to solve what is happening and who the dominant faction, and you try to manipulate who that dominant faction is. So lots of twists and turns as you play those action cards, as you reveal cards and hide cards. It all becomes very strategic as you play towards the end of the round, and try to even at times hurry up the end of the round because you figured it out before anybody else. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.